Let's see. Logitech C9. I forget which camera that is it's going. Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. It is December 18th, 2019. It's 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, has been impeached. He is the third president to be impeached. Andrew Johnson, Vice President Abraham Lincoln, was impeached. It went to the Senate, and of course, he was not removed from office. One Republican senator from Kansas was courageous and voted against removing him from office. John F. Kennedy's book, Profile in Courage, has a chapter on him, or maybe it's not a chapter, but has a section of the book about, his courageous action. The next president to be impeached was President Bill Clinton. And that impeachment really should not have been, done, but the Republicans were. The Republicans, they talk now about how people went after President Trump or whatever. Bill Clinton, they Republicans got together, a clique of them got together, and what can we do to get Bill Clinton, out of office? What can we do to remove this? There was tremendous hatred. I never understood really why there was so much. I wasn't really a Bill Clinton fan. I voted for him, but there was rage and hatred against him. And they got together and, okay, well, if we can get him to testify or make a statement or anything that's under oath and get one lie on it, we can impeach him. And that's what they did. And so this is during my lifetime. I am 78, I think. This is, and during my lifetime, two presidents have been impeached. President Bill Clinton and now President Donald J. Trump have been impeached. So it's historic. Trump is going to be making, in fact, I should have started about 12 minutes ago. He's someplace speaking before one of his audiences and, pep rallies or whatever. And so I actually tried to find it I don't have cable. It's this light down here. That's my little light here that I reviewed that's up across here. It's pretty nice, actually. But I don't need that. But I do need it a lot of times when I want to read something. But of course, my keyboard is lighted. Actually, there was two presidents who really could have been and probably should have been impeached. That would be he had Alzheimer's, and I think I'm getting Alzheimer's. Let's see, the Republican president I don't think the Republicans really love him anymore. Ronald Reagan. Because the party has changed so much, they would be attacking him. Ronald Reagan hit with his trading with Iran, which was against the law, and with his dealing with the Contras in South America. Both those things had been the legislature, Congress had said, no one can deal with because of the Iran, when Iran's people took over our embassy. Congress passed, and it wasn't just, hey, it was the United States passed a thing saying, hey, any country that deals with Iran, well, you're not going to deal with us. I mean, it was bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans voted no dealing with Iran because the American people everybody was really upset over that, the way it was handled and everything. And then also there was legislation, that we would not get involved in South America and in a war against the government and against, it was just, we weren't supposed to get involved in. Legislation was passed. And for years or whatever, members of the Reagan administration were called before Congress when they make their, and ask questions. And it was always like, we're not dealing with, oh, no, positively not. That's against, we're not dealing with Iran. We're not dealing with the Contras. We're not, no, we're not, And of course, we were big time. President Reagan sold military supplies to Iran. Secretly, they gave us money, and he used that money illegally to purchase weapons and do all kinds of stuff to help the Contras in, start to say Nigeria, Nicaragua, I believe. I'm getting old. When it all came out, everybody around President Trump or President Reagan defended him. No, the president didn't know. He didn't know that in the basement, I'm not sure it was actually in the basement, he didn't know that there was that all this was going on totally. He didn't know. And of course, Reagan, lied. And no, I didn't know anything about it. Nothing. It was a big surprise. Wow, that was going on here, for years. All these military aircraft and going back and forth and all this going on. I knew nothing. But, that was really a serious thing to go not once, but, secretaries of defense, secretaries of treasuries, all these people, everybody going before Congress and swearing, under oath. No, there's nothing going on, But Reagan was a likable man. He wasn't, and what he was doing wasn't he wasn't selling arms to Iran and putting money into his pocket. He was very much anti-communist to the crazy part. I mean, well, I'm not sure if we got to the crazy, it's close to the crazy, maybe the crazy zone. So that was, and everybody knew that, about him. And so it wasn't a surprise. That's why probably when these people kept going before Congress, they were being asked repeatedly, there's no dealings going on with Iran, none with, oh, no. But, I mean, that was definitely raised, that went to the level of he could have been impeached. But everybody around him took the blame, and a bunch of them had felony convictions because of that, his people, and some of them went to prison for that. But Ronald Reagan was no, Donald Trump. Then you have, Bill Clinton, and that should not, is lying once, committing perjury. Is that a thing you can remove the president of the United States for? Yeah, if Congress wants to do it, you can do it. It's a felony. Should he have been, no way. But so during my lifetime, I have seen two impeachments. President Bill Clinton and now President Trump. Oh, I see it says here on the CNN's thing, they have this live update. And 1 minute ago it says, meanwhile, President Trump is blasting Democrats at his rally tonight. Yeah, I tried to pick it up on C-SPAN. I don't have cable, and I tried to find it. I am able to get with, let's see, no, this is not where it is. May pull this up. I can minimize this, by the way. What is that app? But I couldn't find it. Well, they had C-SPAN. So you go to radio, ham radio links, radio garden. This is a really neat thing you can pick up. It's just, you can see the link up there above, radio.garden. And let's see, London.
In northwest Yemen, where the airstrikes have taken their toll.
But let's go to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C.
Support for WMU comes from University.
Hello. Nathan, have you been following this today?
Yes, I've been following all day. I just want to say that almost everybody that's been associated with President Trump has found themselves indicted and in jail. His personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, Paul Manafort, and everybody associated with him is in jail now. So that tells me that he...
So that's C-SPAN, but I guess it's C-SPAN 1 radio, C-SPAN 1 radio, I guess. And I went to their, let's see if I knew where, let's see. Where's Trump's, let's see, wait a minute, maybe this will show us where his rally is. Because maybe, I'm not going to do it. I guess I could try to find the town. And then I could see if a local radio station was carrying it. I really don't want to hear. I'll just read the CNN headlines tomorrow to see what what crazy stuff he says. Okay. Less than 1 minute ago, President Trump calls on Americans to vote Pelosi the hell out of office. Well, I'm not sure why he's calling upon the American people. What he needs to do is, I guess, hold a rally out in California in her district. He won't do that, though. Because, she's the House of Representatives. Of course, she's a speaker, but, all these people from the House of Representatives, the Congress people are, they're elected from a very small geographic area. Now the senators, 2 senators for each state, 50 states, that's 100 senators, they're elected in that state, not in a geographic area, they don't have like half the state for one senator and half the other. It's the entire, of course, they're not elected at the same time, but now I was also alive during the Nixon goings on, and I remember that the hearings that went on. In the beginning, the Republicans supported the president, of course. They supported, President Nixon. But as the hearings took place and as information came out, the Republicans, not all of them, but the ones that were real Americans and who cared about, country over party, and who, honored their oath that they'd taken and all that type of stuff. Then the Republicans, not all of them, they didn't all go, walking over to the White House, but when at the point they went over and, they told the president, they told President Nixon, you are going to be removed from office. You're going to be impeached. He actually wasn't impeached yet because they hadn't got to that vote, but they were coming to that vote. And then they went over before that and they told, Nixon, the Republicans went over, you are going to be removed from office, and, we're going to vote to remove you from office for what you did. And he resigned. So now it's tragic, the position that we have come to. I listened a little bit to the little statements that were being made before the vote. First a Republican, then a Republican, a Democrat, back and forth. Allowed, depending on 1 minute for their statement, or 2 minutes, or 3, or whatever their leader decided that they needed, or they asked, or I don't know how they work it out. And the Republicans, it was sickening and tragic and sad that that they they've taken an oath, the same oath that same oath I took as a police officer, same oath I took. I'm not sure I'm not sure if I had to take an oath when I went to work for the post office. Not sure. Maybe just signing a statement. I don't know. But and I think when I worked 30 years, I might be wrong on this, I think the private officers commission that we had, I think on the back you had to sign it. And I think there was the oath on that, protect and defend the Constitution, whatever. But, I mean, it just breaks my heart and super depressing to hear these Republicans making these statements. So, it's all fake. Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. There's no evidence, and just on, just making these statements. And I worry about, what's going to happen to the nation if we continue like this. It's scary. And also, like I've said in other videos, I think President Trump has some major problems, mental problems. And he is, the President of the United States, and he does wield terrific, power and influence, and he can do a lot of things. He can't do everything that he thinks. He can't do 1/10 of the stuff that he thinks he can do. And he doesn't understand that, we have 3 branches of government that are co and equal. And, of course, our founding fathers intended for the presidency to be weaker and intended for the Congress to be, supreme, or where the majority of the power and everything, because of, representation and what have you. But things changed, of course, over time. And it's just... So now, President Trump has been impeached. He's probably saying right now, and I'd sort of like to hear it, but it'll be on, he's probably saying, well, this is not a real impeachment. This isn't really impeachment. This is, blah, blah, blah. I mentioned in a video some time back, there was a guy that I worked for who actually I liked, but he was racist, and I had to challenge him. On I had to do 4 grievances, and I won all 4 of them. He was the director of security, and I was the security officer there. But I liked him, but I didn't understand him. And then I also, over the years, I noticed that he lied, and he lied about a lot. I didn't understand that he lied about everything. But he was smart. He was very smart. Although on the other hand, you wonder how somebody can be smart and do the things that he did, or say the things that he did, or try to. I couldn't understand that. Well, I mentioned in the past, this is not a good thing for me, but he had to, give me my merit reviews and everything, and he wrote fantastic merit reviews, every one of them, for me, and I think probably that's maybe one of the reasons that I liked him, and that's not good. I mean, that's a no-no for me, or a ding for me, or a strike one for me, or something. But I didn't really understand him, and I, so couldn't understand this guy who lied about everything, and he also bragged about himself, how much money he made, the house that he lived in, what he had. I mean, this guy did that kind of, and that really rubbed me the wrong way. And there was a lot of things that he did that just were not right. And so then, that's in my past. That was back in around 1975 to 82 or something like that. And so that was my past. And then, Trump is elected President of the United States. And then I start seeing things, lying constantly, bragging about himself, doing that type of stuff. And then I started thinking, this director of security, Mr. Ross, Donald Trump, they actually had a lot in common, except, I don't know, some people have said, I've seen, you probably have too, there are people who have studied Donald Trump, speeches and videos that he made a long time ago, and he was not the stumbling, incoherent, person. He made good speeches. He was articulate, and I mean, not a great, but he wasn't a Rhodes Scholar, but he was. So I think mentally he has declined. Well, this director of security that I worked for, he eventually, years later, like when I was working, what you're not going to believe is, because it's not the director of human resources or personnel they had at the hospital was a really great guy. And I didn't know that immediately, but as I saw how fair he was and how he followed hospital rules and how he followed rules that human resources people have to follow and whatever, he told me when I was still working there, he says, "Jim, just hang on. Mr. Ross is going to be fired." And I was kind of shocked. I didn't say, "Ooh, wow, you're and I acted like I didn't register. And I never ever said later on, "Remember when you said, Anyway, Mr. Ross did not get fired, and God, I don't know how many years later it was, a whole bunch of years later, a hospital that I worked for actually, they had taken over, like, I think 18 hospitals including the one that I used to work at where Mr. Ross still worked. And so I actually got sent down. I didn't run into Mr. Ross, but I would have had no problem. We'd have talked. I think I exchanged a couple of emails with him, friendly with him and everything. But some of the security officers came back and they said, "How you worked for?" I said, "Yeah, I worked for him." And they said, "How could you work for a guy when he's that crazy?" And I said, "Not crazy, very smart man." They said, "Oh yeah," and then they told me some things. I said, "No." And they said, "Yeah." Like they said, he had written up a policy that security officers, if you had to shoot somebody, you were to shoot, shoot their hand or shoot them in the leg, or shoot to their, to not to shoot in the, And I know, and I said, "Yeah, it's written policy." And then they told me some other stuff, and I said, "It sounded to me like he's having some type of mental breakdown or whatever." And then I was working. Okay, I was still working for the hospital that I just told you about, but they took over other hospitals. So for like 1 year, for 10 years, I worked at one hospital that was still, connected. And then later, I came back and worked at the main hospital for a couple of years. And then I went to a different hospital, Lee Summit Hospital, and I worked out there for a year. And at night, the director of nursing at the hospital, more than occasionally, I'd say, well, sometimes it was, once or twice a night, we would both have to go to pharmacy because she had a key and I had a key. It took both to get into pharmacy. And there was sometimes she had to go there 6, 7 times, and I had to go also with her. So she'd be getting the medication and we'd be visiting, and then she said, did you used to work at Trinity Lutheran Hospital? I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I got your, did you know that she said," and I said, "Yeah, I knew Mr. Ross. Yeah, I worked for him. I kind of liked him." I'm sorry to say that, but I kind of liked him, And she said, "Well, I got him fired." She said, "I was a psych nurse there. Actually, not at that hospital. She was at the hospital next to it, St. Mary's. It also got taken over and closed with all the stuff that was going on. But when that happened, when it got taken over, Mr. Ross, the hospital next to it, he was sort of in charge of the security there at the hospital next to it that was shutting down and whatever. And so she had dealings with him, and she said, yeah, he was mentally unstable, and I was a psych nurse, and I wrote him up and turned it in, and they fired him, So I think I just happened to been in that type of a situation, and as a citizen watching this, I'm not elected to any political office, and I'm not in Washington, D.C., and all I've got is one vote like everybody else. But I think I see some parallels, and it's scary. The guy that was the director of security, he had some things that he could do, and there was a few times I had to, stop him and or try to. And I had a few times, 4 times, do merit reviews to put a check and a balance on him, and I won them all. But he didn't have launch codes. He would have liked to have launch codes. He was retired military. But now, with Donald Trump having, in my opinion, major mental problems, what's this going to do? He's been impeached. He's not going to like that one bit. Well, we know from the letter that he sent yesterday to Pelosi. But, you know, yeah, it's, but, so what else is going on here? I've moved a little bit of stuff around. I don't know if you can tell. Well, let me see here. Let me pull up this and change to my Logitech Brio camera. There we are. On this desk here, I did have my Roku TV up there. Well, not desk, but a shelf. I took it down. I still have my 25-inch wide monitor. I need to, I just thinned out those plants. I need to thin them out again. I've got so many tiny shrimps in there that I need to be very, very careful when I take out the plants, because they love the plants. I also need to take out a certain amount of water and, replace it with water. It is 8:41 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, I'll have to demonetize this video because an advertiser isn't going to want to advertise, when 50% of the people are going to be upset that Donald Trump was impeached, and 50% of the people are going to be happy that Donald Trump was impeached. I'm not happy. I'm glad that a stand was taken, that some people had the courage. Unfortunately, it had to be all Democrats, that they had the courage to do the right thing. But I'm not happy. I'm really depressed that we've come to this divisive time in our history where we have about 50% of the people that are brainwashed, and it's just sad. Wonder what I could look at now that I was going to say. I think I'll find something happy to watch. Oh, okay, they just updated here, I think. What happens next in the Trump impeachment? Well, we know it goes to the Senate. U.S. House votes for the third time in history to impeach a president. The Senate will weigh whether to remove Trump. And, of course, they're not going to remove Trump. I won't be around because, like I said, I'm 78 to see it. But I do think when history is written and when a movie is made or whatever they make in the future, all of these Trump supporters, all of these Republican congressmen, and I think they're going to look really bad and going to be disgraced. Of course, they'll be by the time the final history is written. It's going to be interesting when the polls come out, too, to see, what effect this is going to happen. What's going to happen to Democrats who voted in the House to remove, or the ones that vote in the Senate, actually, too. But especially for this congressmen. They come from small districts. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to them. And I expect a bunch of them probably will be, voted out of office. and because of our system, there's a possibility. I don't think that Trump will be reelected, but there is a possibility he could be reelected. That would be really bad because it'd be sending a message, and it would also be he'd be out to continue as usual. That's the thing we need. We do need, and our founding fathers knew that we need check and balances. And the one thing the founding fathers worried about was an imperial type of president, or a president who would allow himself to be influenced by foreign nations, or a president who would profit from his office and that type of stuff. And Trump is the exact thing that they worried about. But anyway, thank you very much. When I started this video, by the way, I didn't know it was going to be a political video, but I warn you in the text and what have you. So thank you very much for watching.